Welcome to EXP CultureCast, EXP Realty's official diversity, equity, and inclusion podcast. I'm your host, Cody Gilkeson, the visionary leader behind EXP's DEI strategy. I believe that we all have a story to tell, and that's where this show really shines. We are a vibrant tapestry of diverse backgrounds and experiences, and that's our superpower. In each episode, we'll sit down with thought leaders, industry experts, and change makers who are driving meaningful conversations and actions in the realms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. From personal stories of triumph to deep dives into systemic challenges, CultureCast is your compass in navigating the complex landscape of DEI. This is CultureCast, the bi-weekly podcast about what makes us us. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to CultureCast. We are here. It is Pride Month. We are kicking things off with a bang. We finally have Scott Wilson on. Scott is the co-chair of the EXP Pride Network. Scott, do you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, it's so long to get on here. I feel bad. Watching the intro, it's like, my God, I've missed so much. But watching, when you go back and watch them, it's great. Here I am. I'm in Orlando, Florida. I am an agent with EXP. I love it. It's been probably the best brokerage I've been with. I've only been with two, so not many to go with. I'm kind of new with this, but I'm from the beginning when I'd seen EXP, and if I was going to go here, or go KW or one of the other ones, I really liked what EXP had to offer in diversity and inclusion for the LGBTQ, which I am obviously a part of. And I got to meet Jessica a little bit and go back and forth, and she just is so empowering and made me feel like I want to be part of this, and got me to join and with EXP, and then also just taught me little things that are going on in these different communities that we have and how they can help everybody. And these resource groups are so meaningful. It's just a lot of great things. So she said, hey, you want to get more involved and volunteer some more and be part of a chair program with us for the Pride Network? And I was like, sure, I'd love to. I said, I don't have much experience doing this, but let's try it and see what happens. So
yeah. And now look at you. You were the senior leader over here at the Pride Network. You got two other new co-chairs that have just come in, and you're the guy that's been around for a minute now.
I know, God, I love them to death. They're so good, but man, I'm like, man, they're making me feel old because they're some of the they do so quickly. I'm like, man, I should know this stuff. But Holly and Cameron are, oh my God, they're like rapid fire. I can be like, oh, I gotta get on this call with them, and as soon as I'm on the call with them for 30 seconds, attitude changes. Everything's good. We're talking about good things, positive energy. It's just really good vibes.
Right. Yeah. We love the leadership team of the Pride Network, and we're so happy that you guys are really taking the reins with Pride Month this month at EXP. We got a lot of cool stuff coming up. This is just one piece of many. So if you haven't seen all of the stuff that Pride Network is offering this month, make sure you stay tuned to the EXP Pride Network workplace page. That's your best place to see all that news, including a brand new agent toolkit. We've got panel events every week. We've got 2 episodes of the CultureCast that are focused on Pride. Plus, we've got the Pride History Experience that's live in EXP World that you guys are going to just love. So, yeah.
Make sure you check out the museum tour that's going to be coming up. There'll be a very famous person who's going to be escorting you through the museum. It's really amazing. Make sure you see it. You'll go back many times for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. There's a lot of information in there. It's twice as big as the one we used to have in EXP World, which was already huge. Now we have 78 exhibits, and you can tell it came from the mind of a 38-year-old gay guy with ADHD, because it's like a little over here and a little over here. Here's the 60s, here's the 70s. Oh, we're back over to the 40s. We cover a lot of stuff, but it's a great learning tool, and it's a very different experience. I think you guys will like it. You can check it out at exp.world/pride. I made that one easy for you. So we're talking about Pride Month. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff that has to do with LGBTQ issues. And obviously, when we start a conversation about LGBTQ stuff, we talk about coming out, right? So I wanted me and you to both dive in a little bit and let the audience know what our coming out stories were like. Do you mind sharing what your coming out was like?
No, not at all. Because hopefully my story can help others, and they don't wait as long as I waited. Um, Growing up in the North, Catholic, all those good things. Mother and father looking for grandkids, and I was on the football team, and I did this stuff, did that, and I, I was just like in that crowd of the jocks and all that stuff, and that just kind of had that persona. And when as I was going through my teens and stuff and starting to realize that, I'm having some feelings that are a little different than some of my friends and things like that. Um, just trying to just obviously figure out your teen, what you can do, and not having many resources back in the 90s to do those type of things. I mean, and so I kind of hit it and went to college and started experimenting in things and realized I am a gay man. I mean, there's no, this is who I am. And, but I had, with the family and the jobs that I've taken and all that stuff, it was just really not accepted. And God, I used to be able to tell some of the greatest gay jokes to anybody. But so it just took me for a while. I felt like I was going to let people down. That was what I was going to do. So, I mean, to really bring this to a head, probably I was 32, 33 when I came out to my family. And unfortunately, I was in a corporate America job where I was a don't ask, don't tell policy. So, no, I couldn't tell anyone at work anything because I could be grounds for termination. So, until that contract was up, I wasn't out. That once I got out of that and started getting into real estate, I came out to everybody, and you wouldn't believe how much it takes the pressure off you. You didn't even know you have it when it's gone. And then of course your family's like, you wish you told us earlier, and some friends like, we always knew. So it's just everyone's different. I mean, the worst thing you do is have someone be outed. That's the worst way to come out, but in my opinion. But it's just it's everyone does it on their own time. I just wish hindsight I did it earlier. So
Yeah.
and
And,
when you do
I'd
it,
like to just highlight there for a minute. There's something you mentioned about, being able to be fired for being gay. And that's something that we're not talking about ancient history, folks. That still exists, right? You can still be fired for being gay legally in 36 states in the country. So that's something that we really push for. We'll talk about it a little bit later on, but something that's a big deal for us in the queer community that are really aware of politics and that sort of thing is the Equality Act. The Equality Act is a bipartisan bill that keeps getting shelved, but we need to push through that would give basic protections and ensure protections to LGBTQ plus Americans. So that's something there. So my coming out story is a little of the opposite of that. Like I came out when I was 15 during a mental health crisis. I came out to my mom, and it was tough. I grew up in the Deep South. I grew up in Georgia and was raised Baptist and on a path to become a youth leader. I was a youth leader at church and on a path to become a youth pastor. And I was active in the Boy Scouts and a lot of, stuff that was not, it didn't work out for me once people started to know that I was queer. And, I went through a period where my mom's trying to be helpful because she recognized that I was both devoutly Christian and gay. So of course, what I would want to do is change. So, she overheard me praying at night to be straight and suggested that I attend conversion therapy. I went to one therapy session and they wanted to send me off there used to be a company called Exodus International that's out of business now, thank God, but was very damaging psychologically. That for anybody that's listening, conversion therapy is not an option. Conversion therapy is dangerous. Conversion therapy is torture. So that's not something that you should want to put your kids through. There's no price greater than your child's mental well-being. And they have these conversion therapies really have a way of breaking a child in a way that sometimes isn't repairable. So that's my spiel is coming out was not great because of that aspect of it. I wish I had believed that it was possible for me to be loved and be myself at the same time. But I didn't believe that back then, right? I didn't have a lot of role models. I was the only queer person I knew. small town life. And I didn't come out to my dad until I was 19. And that also didn't really go well. He told me like, well, I'm sad for you because it means you're going to get AIDS and die. Yeah. Which I could laugh about now, but that's because it's one of those things you have to laugh at. But they're better now. They are better, not great. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. They're devout, so they're never gonna quote unquote agree with my lifestyle, which is it's politicizing people, right? You can disagree with the fact that I live my life and am out and proud, but there's no denying that I am a gay man. I can't, nobody would have chosen this. So that's, it is what it is.
Oh, for sure. And I didn't know that about you, Cody. Wow, that's a really, really intense story. Yeah, those people are like, what's it like being gay? It's like, well, what's it like being straight? It's we don't choose something you choose, and some people just don't understand that. But you can only do so much. You do your best you can to try educate and do what you can. But some people are just that's what they are.
Yeah,
they believe what they believe in. So move on.
Yeah, true. Gotta move on. So, what would you say? Like, we talked a little bit about this, but what were some of the biggest triumphs that you've had in your life since coming out? What did coming out empower you to do?
Empowered me to believe in who I am and all my professional knowledge and intelligence, education, experience, and other things. It hasn't changed me just because I'm gay. I mean, in fact, the some of the organization I was talking about earlier that I worked with, they're hired me as a consultant now to do work for them, knowing that I'm openly gay. So I mean, that was a huge accomplishment for me because I was in an industry where it was really not accepted. But what I'd done, my reputation, what I was able to accomplish back then, they're like, we'd love to hire you as a consultant because you're just so good at X, Y, and Z. So that was a huge accomplishment. Being able to get involved, volunteering now in like our local business chambers here, the Pride, we have a LGBTQ business chamber here. Also, the Real Estate Alliance, being able to help and talk some of the younger people coming out and what to do, and just volunteering. And I've really been starting to get this passion for these kids that come out to their parents, and all of a sudden they throw them out in the street, and they're homeless now. And in the past, I mean, the stories I'm starting to hear about, once they become homeless, there's prostitution go in, and then drugs, and once they go down that road, it's difficult to get them back. So I'm really trying to get involved with some groups where they're trying to, if someone comes out, they find out that they are going to be out in the streets, that there's a program or something they can go over, safe havens, to be nurtured and find a way to keep going and striving and living your life and not go down that road we talked about a little while ago. I mean, it's really a big issue. I didn't realize how big it was. So those are a few things.
That's great. That's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, and I say it's weird to call it a life accomplishment, but I can't tell you how fulfilling it is for me to have been able to legally marry my partner, and my husband Lee is like my rock. He holds my life together. He's all that kind of things. And that's something when I was a kid, I never thought I would have, you know what I mean? I always thought that I'd marry a woman and that I would, never really be fulfilled or satisfied in that because I'm not attracted to women, right? Like so many people had to do back in the day, and I'm just, it brings me great joy knowing that I'm married to someone that gets me, that I can be my whole self with, and that I'm deeply attracted to, right? Like that's a win, right? But I also, we've just recently, Lee and I opened a nonprofit for our local area. We live in a really small town in Illinois called Danville, Illinois. And we started this nonprofit to try and help people because we're back into a place where people are sort of afraid of coming out and being themselves in public because of the political backlash against our community. And we're trying to give people a safe space to come and talk and get to know each other and chat and share stories and that kind of thing. So that's another big triumph of mine. I love that.
Well, first off, I met your husband. He's amazing. I met him at EXP Con last year, and you definitely did marry up for sure. So.
Yeah, I know, right? You should have seen us when we first got together. He was way out of my league. He still is, actually, but it is what it is. So let's talk about Pride. So we're in Pride Month.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of stuff that happened. We're not going to go through a whole big history spiel about what led to Pride. But I think people need to understand that Pride is about more than just like guys in short shorts parading around with rainbow face paint. You know what I mean? Like Pride came from somewhere. There's a reason that we have Pride festivals, right? So what do you see as some of those big significant milestones in queer history that led to us needing this place to gather?
For sure, Stonewall. I mean, that's a go-to. I mean, that's almost like a default. I'm not going to remember his name. He was brutally beaten, actually killed, dragged behind a car. I think it was Texas years ago. For being. Shepherd? That's it. Sorry.
Yeah.
I should have known that. That's a big one for me. Just being and also where the military, where don't ask, don't tell, and then they're able to now be in the military. I mean, those are three big ones for me for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I think Pride comes from, for me, that need for us to settle into a sense of counterculture, for us to say we don't need to fit in, we can be ourselves, right? It's that sort of, there's a piece of that there that's always struck me as really powerful, of that sort of rejection of the heteronormative way of life, right? Gays tried that. If you check out the Pride History Museum, look at the section on the Mattachine Society. It was one of the first real organized groups of gay men in the country, and their message was very much buttoned up, professional, convince the straight people that we are just like them, and we just have different sexual appetites, but we are just like them. And I think that didn't work because they weren't comfortable making waves. They weren't comfortable asking for more. And then we had people who were more radical, your Harvey Milks and your Marsha P. Johnsons and your Sylvia Rivera's, and these folks and Harry Hay, who were out here being so different, so counterculture, that the government was investigating them because you're so weird, you must be a communist, right? And we sort of, as a community, leaned into that. And now there's street festivals all over the country that are built on the foundation of what Harvey Milk and the folks in the original, like Christopher Street Liberation March and all those sort of things, led to people to come out and be like, no, we're not like you. We're different. That's okay. We celebrate that. Check us out.
Sure. I mean, anyone knows me. I don't really go with the flow that good either. I mean, so I kind of like this. I kind of like to do my own thing a little bit, but that, you're right. We got to be who we are. And that was a big thing. And that's now, even what's going on in the political environment right now, there's still a lot of strong leaders, all different ages, all different, no matter what letter you go with or consider yourself or your pronoun. I mean, the movement's still there. I'm just so proud. I don't see us being suppressed with that. The only thing that I'm a little concerned about is, when we have these big events and all that stuff where you hear, oh, there's going to be a security here, or like, for example, we're doing an event here in Florida, and we want to get the transgender community to come out, and they like, listen, we love you, we're glad you're supporting all stuff. We just don't feel comfortable going out to X event because of things going on. And those are things that we always have things to work on, but like you said, you've got to be yourself, and that's what we got to keep striving for in our community, to do that, because the stronger we get, we can help the ones like being a gay man in Florida isn't that hard. Yeah, there's places we probably shouldn't show it off, but it's not that bad. Now, we need to get the transgender community the same acceptance as where some of us are, so that we're all equal and help out the other ones to come up to our levels. Because again, stronger collaboration community brings everything together. So
that's absolutely it. And If anybody that watches CultureCast knows that I got my spark to start doing DEI because I heard Amber Hikes speak. And Amber Hikes said, famously, I'm going to paraphrase here, but it's not the responsibility of our trans friends to advocate for trans rights. It's not the responsibility of gay people to advocate against homophobia, or women to fight against misogyny, or disabled people to advocate against ableism. It's the responsibility of those who have the privilege to speak on behalf of those people who are not allowed into the rooms that we are. So that has been one of my big missions as well. Is we gotta, I call them my trans homies. That's my trans homies need to be brought up and lifted up and protected, because listen, we can joke about it and we can talk about it all we want to, and I can make light of it and call them my trans homies. But the fact of the matter is, trans women, particularly trans women of color, are being murdered at super alarming levels in this country. And it has to do with just basic misunderstanding of the science and the ethics behind being transgender, right? Because when somebody attacks a transgender person, they're not attacking that person, they're attacking the idea of that person that they don't agree with. It dehumanizes, and it sort of creates this image that you're fighting for something that's appropriate and right, when what you're actually doing is attacking a whole person who has struggled their whole life to find their identity, and finally are expressing it out openly in public. And it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's something to be proud of when you're finally able to walk in your calling. And yeah, that's my small rant. But Pride very much is that these days. And I think we're in a place in the country where, unfortunately, with drag bans and that sort of thing that are happening in some states, and even in Florida with the quote unquote "Don't Say Gay" bill, it's becoming where particularly trans kids are being targeted by legislature, and it's people that don't understand those stories, people that don't understand the reality of living as a transgender person and the benefit of being able to be afforded the proper medical care at that age. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just to add a little bit more to that, and saying that, the younger culture or younger kids are coming in here, whether they're straight, gay, or whatever they are, if they're being taught at ages 5, 6, 7, 8 in grade school that, this transgender is not a good thing, it's not accepted, all stuff, it gets embedded in their head. So we're taking innocent people who don't know any different. They're being told something that's a narrative that's false, and they're going to start grading that in their brain. I mean, it's just, we got to get it early. We talked about a few things on our other panels that, what about going to schools and educate? They're like, we'll do high schools. It's like, well, we need to get there before that, before all these children are still open-minded. They haven't been steered in one way or the other. And if they can be taught the facts, they can make their own decisions. I mean, humans are great people. If you're educated and told what things are and no false news, any of that stuff, I mean, we're smart people. People can figure it out. I mean, you just can't be given bad information.
It's true. Yeah. And kids should be taught what the biological and scientific facts of the matter are. And biology and science agrees that gay people are real, that we are born this way, that transgender people are real, that intersex people exist. And those are things that should not be kept out of schools because of religious reasons, because we have separation of church and state in this country.
We're supposed to.
We're supposed to.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. So let's talk a little bit about back to Pride. What was your first Pride like? What was it like the first time you went to Pride?
All right. All right. Well, first off, I'm a Gemini, so my birthday's in June. So Pride Month is June. So it's kind of like a more special. We have Father's Day in June. So there's a lot of good things. My first Pride I went to, again, I was closeted, so I didn't go to the one in New York. I went down to Gay Days here in Orlando. A few friends of ours, we jumped on a plane and came down here because we weren't really out up there, and just came down. And it was like, this is gonna be wrong, like going to Disney World for your first time. Like, oh my God, look at all this fun stuff, and the things that everyone being open, being happy, being safe and fun, and not worried about someone coming up behind you and smacking you or calling you a faggot or something. I mean, I was like, oh my God, I want to move here. Can I just be surrounded like this? I mean, It was fascinating, and meeting different people and stories, making some friends I'm still in contact with. It's just, it was like, I belong here, and there's more people like me here, and look at us, we're having a great time.
Yeah. And for anybody that doesn't know what that is, Gay Days is an unofficial weekend. Is it a whole weekend that they do it?
Yeah, it's always the first week of June. It's called Gay Days and also One Magical Weekend. Same thing. They're just two hotels, different ends of the Disney chain, if you will.
This is one of those grassroots things that grew up just from gay men wanting to go and celebrate Pride at Disney, and it's been happening for decades. And it's just, if you're gay, you know to go on this week or this weekend and wear a red shirt, and then everybody knows that's your signal, right?
Exactly. Actually, I met one of the guys who was one of the founders of that 2 years ago. So he said, we started meeting on the internet. He goes, you used to have AOL, and you go ding, 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 ding. And he goes, we didn't have pictures of anything, but let's all get together. Let's get together at Disney. Well, we couldn't back then. The internet didn't have pictures or anything. We just he goes, DOS level, just messages. He goes, so let's all meet at the Disney icon and all have red shirts on at 1:00. And was how they did it. And I think it was 91 or 92, maybe. I might be off on the year, but it was back. He goes, that's how we did the red shirts. Like, how are we going to recognize everybody? Yeah. And that's what they came up with. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. They actually still do that every Sunday, or not every Sunday. This Sunday or Gay Days, they'll do that. It's a lot bigger now. Disney still doesn't recognize it, but they kind of do. So
they know what's going. They know what's up. You can't. You're trying not to notice all the gay guys in red shirts.
Girls, lesbian, all better we have. Now they do acknowledge a PSA that this weekend we're gonna have some different cultures here, and so just be aware you might see some things that you're not normally used to seeing in the Disney properties. So they acknowledge it at this point.
That's a very Disney answer. I worked at Disney for a summer, and that sounds very much like something their corporate machine would put out.
Two fingers. You can't point with one. 2 fingers.
It's two fingers. It's 2 fingers. Yeah. And if you're lucky, you're playing a character that nobody else in the park is, because otherwise you gotta enter a GPS of where they're going to be, because you can't be seen anyway. Disney's a whole other topic. I'm clearly a Disney gay. I've got my mouse ears back here.
That's a whole podcast in itself, the Disney culture.
Yeah. So let's see, what else do we want to talk about? So all right, let's talk about community support. How can allies and the broader community of folks that are supportive best support queer people during Pride Month and sort of throughout the year?
I think, just come out and celebrate with us. If you want to go to the parades, just on the side. I mean, if you want to visit the booths, come out and see them. Booths come out, or the parade routes. I mean, you don't have to go up to us and say, I like you, you're so fun, I have gay friends and all that stuff. That's you don't have to do that. Just come out and support us. People in masses. I mean, whenever you do anything, whether you're doing this here or if you're talking in person, when you get on stage, you only see 4 or 5 people around. You're like, oh, but when you have a full room, it's great. So if you guys come out and support us, and we look around, we just see people for the masses and everything. I mean, that's the best thing you do. Look at all these people that are supporting us. They're allies with us. Wear some nice, wear gay colors or anything. Come out, whatever you want to do. Just come out and support us and be happy and be see what it's about. We don't bite. We don't do this. We're just like anyone else. It's just we are very inclusive, believe it or not. You can hear all these different things. Come out and just support us. It's great. And most people are very easy, open to talk to. And a lot of resources usually at all of these events if you want to get involved, whether monetarily, volunteering, or anything like that, or be mentors. A lot of big brother, big sister opportunities, because a lot of the younger gay people need that because their parents no longer want to help raise them because of what they come out. So there's a whole bunch of ways to help.
Yeah, there really are. And, we talked about some of the organizations that you've done work with and the organization that my husband and I run. You find that organization and you volunteer your time. And if you can't volunteer your time, then open your pocketbook. Every little dollar counts. These are the folks who are actively have found ways to build the culture and the community where you live. If you find that organization and support them however you can, either with your hands or with your wallet, then that is actively helping. You don't have to go out and try and find the solution for how do I help. They probably have already figured it out and just need your support, right? And, when you go to a Pride event, that just listen, right? Learn the new stuff, because the one thing you'll know about the gay community, the queer community in general, the LGBTQIA plus community, is that we are constantly, people make fun of the alphabet soup of how many letters are on here and how many new identities come up every year. But listen, knowing all of these new things, right? And these things that are coming up, typically they're not new. They're newly recognized, is the way to put it. And so it's really important to stay abreast of that knowledge and keep yourself educated. And the best way to do that is surround yourself with queer people. And you will, by proxy, take in that information like a sponge and start to understand trans identities and what it means to be intersex and what it means to be two-spirit and all of those new things, right? And even what it means to be questioning. We have so many folks out here that are still in that questioning mode because it's not easy to figure out sexuality. Sexuality is such a spectrum. So we've got a big community here in my community of Danville that are people who are questioning, right? Because they don't want to settle on one side or the other. And maybe they haven't realized that you don't really have to settle on one or the other these days, right? There's a whole myriad of identities, and pansexual and asexual and demisexual and all those things that you can be, right? So just keep your ears open and learn. That's what I would say to an ally that wants to do better. And we always say we're looking at active allyship, and keep that word in mind, active, because the opposite of an active ally is a passive ally, and a passive ally is not an ally.
Very well said, Cody. Very well said.
Jessica Nieto taught me that. So let's talk about media representation. How do we think that media is currently doing representing queer voices in pop culture and in TV and movies and music and all that kind of stuff? How do you think we are?
I think pop culture, we're doing pretty good. Obviously, the movies, depending on the genre, what it is. I think in general, we're doing better than we have. I think we were doing better. Well, shouldn't say that. I think probably 5-7 years ago, it was like really out there and a lot more being out. Like when you had the Glee Club, you had all the TV shows of a lot of gay sitcoms and stuff. A lot more characters that were gay. Now it's kind of leveled off a little bit, but they're still pushing it. It comes out. It could always be better. I think cultural wise and music, they're doing well. Movies, social media for sure is really pushing. I think that's probably the best one right now we have, in my opinion. But politics on that side, we could probably do room for improvement. But I think social's going well. Music's well. The other ones probably use some help. But hey, everything's a work in progress.
Yeah, it is. It's a work in progress. And, there's always that pendulum swing. So I think, you're talking about 5-7 years ago when there were several mainstream shows whose primary storylines were about queer identities. And we don't really have that now. What we've been delegated back to is featured characters on big shows. But I will say the roles that we get as featured characters are, generally speaking, there are some real misses out there, but speaking generally, those featured characters are much more better developed characters than they were in the past. They're not a wink and a nudge and a haha, he's gay. That's the whole joke, Now we get people that live full lives, and we see what their realities are like, and they're much more realistic portrayals. And you love to see that. I think in the music scene, we've got fantastic representation, because there's so many queer artists, and streaming speaks for itself, right? Artists can be created. I think the low-key success story that not a lot of people realize how famous he got, how much money he made off the sweat of his own brow without a media machine behind him, is Lil Nas X. The way he snuck in the back door of music culture, having a little song on YouTube, and then became the biggest song in the country, and now has been able to sustain a relevant music career and a relevant voice in the queer community, that's a model that is, whoa, it shows you queer people can get their way into the industry, even if the industry doesn't really welcome them. Nobody asked for a gay country singer, but they got one.
The gays
singer at that, yeah.
We always will. I mean, so one of the little geeks can come out of me. So I'm a big NASA geek. I love everything to do with NASA. So they had a TV series come out for all mankind, and one of the ones that there's she got to be high up in the show with NASA. I think she was director or something, but she was a lesbian. But she lived with a man to basically as their beard. I guess they still call it that. It's throughout life, and all the episodes. I mean, it went on. I think it's like 4 or 5 seasons, but throughout the whole season, it went through. I thought it was kind of neat. Did some back in the '60s, trying to bring the gay side of it into this. So,
yeah, very, very interesting. So let's talk about like role models. I know growing up, we didn't have a ton of queer role models, but now there are plenty out there. And yeah, like, so who do you see as those sort of role models for you?
For me, well, Harvey Milk you brought up, and I didn't know, I wasn't around when he was there, but as everything else, you do research and find out about things. And when I watched, it's probably cliche, I watched the movie, I was like, oh, well, geez, that's pretty neat. Then did my research. So I watched the movie first and actually researched it. I really man, he was a real transcending, what he did. Some of the older ones, I mean, Elton John, a lot of things he's done. Unfortunately, most of mine are all music backgrounds. Cher for sure. Lady Gaga now. I mean, she's actually the only. Her and Elton John I've seen in concert. I haven't seen Cher, but when Lady Gaga was there, because it was just. It's just they're there for us. And I really live through music. Music means the world to me. I barely watch TV a lot, but I mean, music is. I need music all the time, and it puts me in a zone where I want to be, and I love the vibe, and most of mine are music.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I feel the same way. I think I have seen Gaga and Cher in concert. And they were both fantastic. I've also seen Britney twice, but that's a you know, we love Britney. She's my favorite little country mess. You know, she reminds me of me. But yeah, I think when we talk about role models, Amber Hikes is a big one for me. Amber Hikes is a big one for me. Amber Hikes is not a very well-known figure in our community, but I just love her to death. And I gave you that quote earlier, the paraphrase of the quote, but she's the woman who advocated for the black and brown stripes to be added to the pride flag when she was the one of the country's first LGBTQ liaisons to a mayor's office of a major city. She was in Philadelphia. And now she is the diversity, equity, and inclusion director at, oh my gosh. Why can I not think of it? It's not Land Illegal, but it's a gigantic legal organization that protects people's rights. And she, every time I hear her speak, it's something that really gets me. And I also am a firm believer that, Black queer women need to be listened to, and they are the ones behind the scenes making the movement and the change in the positive direction for our most underrepresented communities. So for those reasons, I love Amber Hikes. I think we talk about closer to home. I'd be remiss not to mention Jessica Nieto, right?
Gosh,
not a big national, on TV all the time figure, but somebody that has had such an indelible impact on my life. So that's somebody that's a role model that really inspired me. I think she fits that bill pretty well of a role model that inspires me. She's taught me a lot about meeting people where they are and finding common ground with folks and controlling my lesser instincts when it comes to dealing with people who I may patently disagree with. I think Jessica's a beacon of happiness and that kind of thing. We're spending this year And Jessica and I both have committed to, anytime we're available to say her name, is Keely Rich. Keely Rich was an agent here at EXP who passed away this year, suddenly to cancer. And she was someone who came out really, really late in life and touched a whole lot of people with her story. A whole lot of people. And we're going to be talking more about Keely this month and this year, but we're really committed to remembering the impact she had on folks here at EXP. So that's my little shout out for Keely Rich as well.
Well, that's great. And I mentioned Jessica in the beginning, and she drew me into this. If it wasn't for her, you probably wouldn't be speaking right now. We put it up front. And another one that I just met with my our relationship with being on the board for the Real Estate Alliance is Anita. She is she is amazing.
Yeah.
I met her before I knew she was to be elected, and I think we shared a shuttle or something going to either EXPCon or the first Alliance conference. I forget. We had an amazing conversation, just talking. And I was like, wow. And then to find out the next night she's going to be the next president, and she got up and spoke in front of everybody, and she owns the room. I mean, she doesn't, and not like she has to get it. As soon as she walks in, her presence is known. Those people just walk in and like, oh, look who's here. And she just has that about her, that aura, that presence. And you really, sometimes you listen to speeches and your mind starts wandering and other things. When you're listening to her, it's right on her. I mean, because everything she says to me is poignant, and you feel her passion and what she is about. I mean, really, she's been really influential, and I'm telling everyone I can about her. She's just been great. I really, really like her.
Yeah, and I think the thing about Anita is her star is just beginning to rise. I think she's got so much more in her that is going to hit us all soon, And I think there's going to be a fireside chat with her featured by the Pride Network this month, and I can't freaking wait for you guys to hear. But she's an EXP agent now, and she's the national president of the LGBTQ plus Real Estate Alliance, and that's such a big win for us because I'd echo everything that Scott said. She is someone who commands a room in such a way, and her voice is so important and so vital. I think the world of Anita.
My dog is going nuts.
Yeah, my dogs are currently going nuts too because my lawn service just showed up. They never show up the day they're supposed to be here, and here they are on time on the right day for the first time in months.
Literally, my lawn service just pulled away here 5 minutes ago. That's why you hear this little noise from her, and that because she obviously can't go out when they're out there. So
right, yeah.
Sorry.
So let's talk about, let's see, what else do we got on here? How do you plan to celebrate Pride Month this year? Any events or activities you're particularly excited about?
Well, in Florida, our Pride is actually in October. So it's National Pride Month here. So for June, besides all of our stuff I'm doing with EXP for Pride and the Alliance, like I said, I'm doing gay days this weekend. I'm volunteering a little bit. And that's pretty much what I'm doing in Florida. Now, October is our Pride. It's actually Atlanta Pride's a week before us, and it comes down to us. So you go from Atlanta, and you come to Orlando, and we do a booth there for real estate. We got something. We might even be doing a float this year. There's events we do, volunteering. It's a whole week long event. There's drag shows, there's cultural things. There's a lot of celebrities come to town. So it's really fun, but it's October. And in Florida, it's really hot here now. So if you're not by the pool or the parks, October's a little better to be doing the parades and all that stuff here. So
yeah, ask me later about how our Pride goes here in Danville because we got an 80% chance of rain and no backup plan. So I don't know.
The mascara will be running.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, but we're hopeful to make an impact and reach some people, and that's the best that we can do. But I'm realizing that I didn't share my first Pride experience. My very first Pride was in Atlanta in 2004, and that was I was in a college town in Valdosta where I went to college in Valdosta, Georgia, which is a very blue pocket in a very red state. And so I had a little gay community, but we all knew each other. And going to Atlanta and being like, oh my God, somehow I'd never been able to wrap my head around how many gay people really exist, right? Until you see that many gay people in one place and you're like, whoa, I feel like a grain of sand, you know what I mean? Like I'm not, I used to be like one of the trees in the forest. Now I'm like, you know, but
which is a good thing.
Yeah, no, it's a good thing. And it was amazing. I really got to see a lot of things that really, it changed my perception forever. It made me realize how big our community is and how important. I still to this day think about how important it is for us to have pride celebrations in places like Atlanta, like Orlando, where it's like not, you walk outside of the confines of pride and it's can be scary to be a gay person. And the places where we're going to get the most vociferous protesters are the places we need to be the most. That first pride I went to, I was handed a CD by a woman as I walked in the front gate. And I was like, what is this? Okay, cool. Somebody handed me a gay CD. I put it in my car, and it was the worst hellfire brimstone sermon I'd ever heard in my life. And so when we came back after having lunch, I found the woman and I cracked the CD right in her face. And I was like, what are you doing? You were ruining people's day. And it wasn't until much later that I realized that who I had encountered and had a real, I'm really making the story a lot smaller than it was, but we really had a vocal confrontation there for several minutes about back and forth about whether gay people should be allowed to live, right? And it took me a while to realize that this woman was the late Pastor Fred Phelps's wife from the Westboro Baptist Church. Maybe the most anti-gay people in the history of our country that I had a confrontation with. And now, you know, they're not, I don't think Westboro is as visible as they were, but at the time there wasn't anything more public, scarier for gay people, right, than Westboro picketing your event, because they really are nasty. These are the God hates fags people, right? If you've seen those historical signs. Thankfully, after the passing of Fred Phelps, that church sort of disbanded. I think they still exist, but they don't really do picket events and travel across the country to do that kind of thing anymore. That doesn't mean we don't have new versions of these protesters, right? Mm-hmm. But that was my first real encounter with someone whose argument was, I think you should be dead, right? So that changed the way I perceived a lot of things. Yeah.
Threaten your life. I mean, geez.
Yeah, right. So there's still a lot of challenges that the queer community faces, despite the progress that we've made. And I say this a lot, but, you know, many people who are passive allies think that since we won marriage equality, fight for gay rights is over, right?
Opposite.
We won, you know, but that it couldn't be less true. We have actively right now 489, the number's up by 2 in the past week, pieces of anti-LGBTQ legislation in our country, all over the world, all over, you know, the United States is really, it's not a great time to be queer, honestly. There are certainly places where it's still great to be queer, and there are cities and states who have baked in protections. But there's also cities and states that are baking in discrimination against us. I would encourage anybody who wants to learn more about this to watch the show on HBO. Well, it's called Max now, forgive me. The Max app has a show called We're Here. And the show is just fantastic. It takes a group of drag queens to places where being queer isn't accepted, and particularly drag isn't accepted. And they put on a drag show with folks who maybe never would have tried drag. So they get to experience that. They get to experience, it gets to really show people what it is that we're up against. And this season, the 4th season in particular, is much different because they go to places where it's literally illegal to be in drag in public, right?
Oh, jeez.
So the fact that that show, where we would think progress is being made in these places and over the years this is going to get better, it has not. It has not. It has gotten much worse. In places like Tennessee, where they were told there was this small town that they went to, and the small town had a pride parade in 2022, and they had such a backlash against the fact that drag queens were going to be out in public that they were told in 2023, when they had pride, that they had to do it indoors in a place that didn't have windows facing the public, and there could be no drag. So if you're wondering what a pride is like that, it's not pride.
No.
That's not pride at all. So we got a long way to go.
Yeah, and I mean, just don't depress when you hear these things. Just think, what more can I do to help? I mean, it's things like ebbs and flows and everything. We're not going anywhere. It'll get better. We're just in a spot right now where we need all the help and alliance and allies that we have, so they can see what we are and what we do and the good we do, and realize that we need some support now too. So
we absolutely do, and that's being an active ally means when those things come up in your community, you don't sit by and let it happen.
exactly.
You go and make your voice heard, no matter how small you think your singular voice is, right?
For sure.
You go and tell people drag is safe for children, right?
Yeah.
There are restrictions that we can put on things. Okay, so we want to have a drag story hour. How about we just ask that the drag queen dress in such a way that doesn't expose anything? Most of them aren't going to expose anything anyway, but if you just put that into place, now we can still have drag story time. Right? It's as simple as finding compromise with folks and being that voice for compromise, right? And education. So that's it.
Someone was talking. I heard someone talk about that recently, and I said, "Well, if you ever watched Drag Race, that's about majority of what the drag shows you'll see in person are. I mean, if it's on TV, I mean, they have no problem showing it. They're not doing anything they shouldn't be. Most of the drag shows that you're going to see are going to be the same rated as that. They're not going to be whatever you're hearing about nudity. That's not what happens.
That's not the reality of a drag show. If you are seeing drag shows that are a little more R or PG-13 rated, they're in venues that only can be accessed by people who are 21 and over anyway. If you go to an all ages drag show, anybody that gets up on that stage and does something offensive to a child, it would be our community that tells them it's not okay.
Exactly,
Right.
and our performers hold themselves up to a higher standard.
That's it. Yeah, and I'd also say, if you're looking at a little bit of risque costumes, then I hope you're not putting the television on for your children, because risque costumes are that's what our pop stars do, and that's what drag queens are. They're little baby pop stars.
our performers.
That's it. So what are your hopes for the future of queer rights and acceptance, both in the US and globally? What do you hope for the future?
Oh, I hope what I'm wanting to see is what most everyone wants to see, is just be equal to others. I mean, there should be a point where we don't have to be talked about, oh, they're gay or they are this. Not like we're just other people. We shouldn't be segmented like, oh, that's the gay people over there. I want it to be, we're just, everyone's the same. I mean, you don't bring it up. I mean, like, you don't hear people talking about, oh, there's white people over there, black people over there. I mean, that's not how it is. I mean, just talk. You don't need to talk about us. We don't need to be talked about. We just need to be accepted. And that's what I like, where you don't have to let people know who we are, what it is. You just be accepted throughout the world. Obviously, political fronts, I want to see her through the world. I mean, there are countries still where people are getting arrested, thrown in jail, incarcerated for a long time, for life, being killed for being gay. I mean, that's a human atrocity. That needs to stop. I mean, we can do anything in this world. Try to stop us from killing other people just because of the way they're born. That's really what this comes down to. And it's murder. I mean, you can call it what you want. It's murder. That's what it is. That would be probably my biggest one worldwide.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a big deal. I think, for me, my hope for our community is that parents will become more understanding
True.
and will really unconditionally love their children, right? As
I hope.
someone who's been loved by a parent with conditions, um, it's not really love, right? I love you, but I'll never accept you. It's not going to be good enough for people anymore, right? I want to move past that in the world. I want it to be celebrated. That's my hope for the future.
So, Cody, let me ask you a question. So, think about the parents of today versus the parents of your age, and when we're pretty much brought up around the same times. I'm hoping that the younger parents that seem to be brought up are a little more open-minded. And I mean, I'm seeing that a little bit, at least in Florida. The groups that I come around, the straight people, and the way they're bringing their kids up, we don't care if they're going to be gay or straight, whatever. I hope that is just not a local thing that I'm experiencing. Do you think that that's the generation is changing? Will be more accepting, or what's your thoughts on that?
I I think much in the way that we talked about how the TV landscape was different 5 or 7 years ago, I think the landscape for queer identities and progress has changed as well. I think
Okay.
we're on a little bit of a backswing at the moment. It's hard for me to imagine that a young parent who doesn't really get involved in politics doesn't somehow become affected by the zeitgeist and all of these anti-LGBT pieces of legislation and all of these loud voices coming out and vilifying queer people. Um, I don't think that's healthy for the progress in the direction we'd like to see, for the goals that I would like to see parents come to. I think we have taken a step back. I worry, yeah, but I think on the whole, just based on more people being comfortable coming out of the closet in cities where that's something you can do and feel safe, in those places, yeah, it's going to be better. But I think we're really divided right now, and people who live in rural cities like mine, um, we performed our survey to see if people needed our group, and the overwhelming response we got from people of all ages, but particularly from young people, is I would never be visibly gay in public in this city. I would fear for my life.
Oh my gosh, really? Yeah. That's
That really shocked me in 2024.
yeah, that is shocking.
But that's the reality. So now I don't know that we're really in a moment of progress right now. We could be. I think we've got some political hurdles to get over first.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a lot of work to do in your town.
I do. Yeah. I also, for my realtor homies out there, I also live in a town where 20% of our homes are unoccupied. So
Ooh.
we are a dying fast little town. Factory town with all the factories closing. But
Well, those type of towns are the ones the gays move into, revitalize it, and make it its own little oasis. So bring in the gays.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying my best. So finally, I always ask this question. We've talked a lot about Pride, but we're also here at EXP, and I always end with this question. If you were approached by someone who it was their very first day at EXP Realty today, what advice would you give them?
Don't be overwhelmed by all of the emails and new things, onboarding process that we all go through. And it's going to take a month to get through it, but believe me, it's worth it. EXP offers things that no other brokerage can. I mean, you can work from home, or it's in the cloud, you do hybrid, there's offices. I mean, EXP listens to the agents and knows what's going on, and they satisfy almost all the needs you have. And if they're not doing something that you think should be done, there are so many resources to talk to EXP World, all these places you can go to. I mean, who knows? You just pop on your computer, go into your Florida brokerage room and say, I have a question. And someone's going to be able to answer for you. And you can get a broker just like that. Weekends, you can get a broker. They have 24-hour brokers. I mean, you have the most support that I think you could have at any brokerage here than you can find anywhere else. It's nonstop. It works like a machine, but it also has a personality of small town people. I mean, it's all personalities. You'll find what you're looking for here, and it won't take you long to find it. So many. I think there are more resources that EXP offers that probably than people. There's probably more resources they offer that most people don't even know about than what they know about. It's amazing.
I promise you that. Yeah, we've got resources that I'm still learning about every day, and I'm like, what? I didn't know we had that.
And make sure you're on Workplace and Chat. There's so much information, referrals, and things that go through those two sites. It took me a little bit to get onto them. And once I realized, I was like, man, what was I missing? I mean, referrals come through, education. It's very important. Just keep up with Workplace and Chat for sure.
That's it. All right, Scott. Thank you very, very much for joining me today.
Anytime.
This has been such a good episode, and we will see all of you next time.
Thank you for
Happy
joining
Pride.
us on this episode of CultureCast. If you have time, please be sure to scan the QR code on screen now to leave us a review on Glass.